Rick once again. Snake Rick from Cash Creek up in Alberta. Another wonderful Thursday, another 4D Thursday. What will we learn, people? What will we learn? Well, you could learn a lot. You could learn a little, but at least you'll learn something. So, oh, I see we have 3 people watching. Woo. Thanks for showing up, guys. Appreciate it. Hopefully it's all coming through nice and clear. My voice, that is. And yeah, we can get to talking about some interesting stuff. If you have any questions, just post them in the comments, or I mean, not in the comments. Just post them on the live chat for now. But if you're watching this and it is not live, well then post your question in the comments section down below. Last night I went to our local game store, Strange Ideas. Went to there, played some well, it was, role play night essentially, and I grabbed one of the tables there. Spencer showed up. You guys know Spencer Ismail. You guys know him as the Dispenser Show, and you've seen him in probably a couple of my games, trying to learn how to do 4D roleplay. Well, 3D, 4D roleplay. And yeah, he came in and we ended up putting together a traveler game pretty quick, and it was pretty chill. He rolled up a character. It was one of those characters that was kind of meh. He ended up not doing well on his first term, and essentially got all the skills to like a law enforcement, just all the basic training. And then his next term, which is another 4-year term, he decided to go into crime, because apparently the reason why he got taken off the force was because he had a conflict of interest with somebody that was there. And so he ended up going into the underworld of sci-fi and plying his trade as a thief. So when we finished, rolling up his character, it was a thief with a level 2 in his skill for stealth, which was pretty awesome. So, let's see. Go ahead. I see somebody talking and wanting us, needing an invite. Okay, let me try this. Copy. Doink. Let's see. See if we can help. Kingmaker. Chat's not working. Okay, let me paste in here again. So chat's not working. Can't see it, but I can listen. Okay, cool. Sorry about that. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it disables the chat when I go ahead and throw it up as a. I did a really weird thing on Steam on StreamYard, and might have messed something up. Might have closed the chat. But okay, well, there's some chat here. So if you're in the Discord and you are in the promotion content, feel free to drop me a question there. Then I guess that's really weird. Oh. Show comments on stage. Well, we can also do that here. Let's see if that pops up. I'm not sure if that works. Okay. Anyways, long story short, we got together. And he was like, "Oh, I need to buy something for my character that's that's got a vehicle or something." So I was like, "Oh, okay. Yeah." Set content made to kids. Yeah, that was probably the switch. So I decided I'm not going to do any swearing for the first 7 minutes here at least. So a little bit of a warning out there: if you are a youngster and you've heard some naughty language in your past coming from mommy and daddy's mouth, Well, you'll probably hear some of that going on, but it won't be really abusive kind of stuff. It might be a slip of a tongue or something. But if your parent or guardian is okay about that, then please, ask them if you can watch Slick Rick, the 4D GM on 28mm RPG on YouTube. And you can have a full and better life of roleplay. Guaranteed. We can teach you how to roleplay. Okay, so anyways, back to my story. So Spencer and I got a character together, and he's like, well, what I need a vehicle or something. So we decided to, instead of just, going, well, maybe there's a used one, blah, 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 or back and forth, like usual game masters do when it comes to a Traveler game, because they aren't interested in the role play part. What we did was we actually role played the interaction of Spencer attempting to go ahead and get himself a vehicle at a reasonable price. So it ended up that there was a deal that was made between him and the and what was it called? I forget but this procurer of items, like in a pawn shop, but based on a space station, was heard of his dilemma. So inquiring minds said, may as well give him a little side quest here. So what I did was I presented as the curator, and the curator went ahead and told his character, hey, there's a little side job that you can do, as he recognized him as being part of a mob organization, which was rolled up in his character, right? It was rolled up in his Spencer's character, and he says, yeah, we can get you a flyer. We got one, in the back, a little beat up. Can't really sell it for much, but we're willing to part for it if you go ahead and do a job for us. It'll be through another person. So he hands him the number and lets him know that his contact's ready if he wishes to embark on this endeavor to obtain this vehicle. And there's some money in him in doing this endeavor. So so Spencer decides, he's going to go for it, and grabs the number and punches it into his communicator and calls up the person, and they give him a job. And all I did was basically opened up the I don't have a book here, but you can get the book 766 patrons or something like that. It's an old Mongoose Traveler first edition book, which is just chock full of like all kinds of ideas. I just flipped it open. I looked and I seen one idea was an antiques dealer. Somebody wanted to grab this item. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, boom. I just put it, open up, put it away. They said, okay, well, this is the job. Antiques dealer. And they want this specialized kind of gem stone that's on display. It's like a large orb, kind of like a Fabergé egg kind of size, like a size of a volleyball kind of thing. And it's on display. It's on an art display. It's from some sort of like a dark art kind of thing display going on, and the artist is apparently into the more esoteric and weird, strange stuff, right? So just letting you guys, I can see you guys chatting away in the Discord. Just type in your questions if you have anything there, and just go ahead and ask away. I still have the Discord partially open, so I can see what Elf Hunter and Kingmaker have been saying. So appreciate you guys supporting me in one way or another with some of your own insight, or your own personal blurbs that I can recollect on. And so anyways, we played that out, and it only took us about, a half hour. We went through the whole thing of the thief trying to obtain the item, a couple security bots, crowds of people looking at things. There's an auction coming up, so it's kind of like stressing the time of acquiring this item before it disappears off the shelf, kind of idea. And it's on display, open for people to see. So Spencer ends up flying, eventually getting to the planet surface, and lands. Now, the one thing I do suggest is when you're playing a particular type of character, make sure it's something that you are used to playing. Sorry, I gotta take a drink here. So, in this case, Spencer went in, and he's trying to do a heist, and he's drawing a blank. He can't. He's thinking so hard you can see steam coming out of his ears. And so I'm like, describe the area. It's kind of like a, open area, little galleries on the side. This egg is in the centerpiece of this showcase. It's got a little, ribbon thing going around it to cordon it off from people walking up and actually, trying to do something to the egg. It's encased in glass, and he's got a glass cutter, in his kit. And what else? He's got some grenades. So he's got stun grenades and stuff like that. So and smoke grenades, I think, or something like that. Anyways, so I'm like, okay, well, it's his turn. I described the area for him, and he was kind of at a miss on how to approach it. And there was kids running around, kind of playing hide and seek, in a sci-fi kind of way. These kind of preteen kind of kids just goofing around, because you see that a lot. And I used to work in a store, retail store, in a mall, and I've seen all kinds of things. So I tend to put them into into my games. So if you're ever doing an RP in a mall, I know exactly what kind of characters you can run into in there. And anyways, so he was at an impasse on what to do. I'm like, so I kind of he basically did what was like almost like a smash and grab kind of thing, and ran out of there. So what other things he could have done? I said, well, when you think about it, because you were struggling there for quite a bit, and this was like, our kind of after game talk, as he was having an issue with it. I was like, yeah, if you're playing like a thief character, definitely try to identify with like maybe some movie thieves, something that you've seen on TV. And in particular, I'm thinking Tom Selleck's Lassiter character in what was it, Runaway? I think it was called Runaway. It had Gene Simmons in it, I believe. And watch stuff like that. You learn the art of distraction and stuff like that in a lot of things. He was like, "Oh, you mean like what's that movie? The one with the Sandberg kid in it, or one of them." And they were "Now you see me, now you don't" kind of thing. I said, yeah, the art of, distraction really helps you. You could have done something like, given, said, hey, kids, here's 10 credits. Go ahead and make a mess or start screaming in the corner or something like that. Make a distraction. Well, something's happening, you can go ahead and do something. The art of distraction is key in a lot of thieves' arsenals. So, keep that in mind if you're playing a thief. Think of different ways that you can distract or, divert attention and do that. You see it in games on the video games. You see a lot of that. But if you had time to, you know, stretch it out from a session 0 to like a few days before we actually played out a session, then I would suggest definitely go ahead and, you know, do a bit of study on what your character is. You know, just a little bit. Get an idea of what a thief character would do in, you know, in front of a door or a certain situation. I don't know why my chest is so dry. I guess it's probably I just finished doing a bunch of patio stones, and holy smokes, I'm pooped. And today my arms really want to fall off. So sorry if I don't sound as energetic as I usually am, because holy smokes, it's been a bit of a rough couple of days. I was just gonna see if I can bring up a picture of what it looks like. So there's the back. Those are all the stones I laid, you know, all the way out. You know, I dug all this out and pounded it down, and it was just, now that thing's entirely flat. I had to lay in the stones and go ahead and re-level it and make sure everything's perfect. Got her all finished this morning. So lots of leveling and finally gonna get some material, some sand material that goes in between. You wet it and it sets up and sets up all your stones. So that's the next phase on that. And then I got to go ahead and put in some nice, cool 2-foot high planters on either side of it, running down and kind of cutting off any access area from the alleyway to my front yard, because right now people start walking through it like they own it, like it's a thoroughfare to get to the dog park, and I don't want that. I don't want a trail of people going through. It drives me crazy. I have stuff I want to keep in my yard, and we have one of those cameras in the back of our, you know, that has an overview, just like that picture that I showed. So it takes a video whenever there's some movement back there. So it's always, you know, making phones go off if we still have them activated on the camera. But roleplay, what is stopping people from roleplay? Like you know, sometimes it's a case of not knowing what the character entails, like a thief. Like if you've always played the brash barbarian kind of character, and you suddenly switch it up to a thief or a wizard, it might get a little weird for you at first until you get used to it. Like definitely watch some movies, videos, whatever material out there, read a book with that type of character in it, and get a good sense of how they think, you know. Because you know, if you are a cleric, herbalist, druid kind of, you know, character, you're gonna be knowing about flowers and, you know, fauna and stuff like that, and you're gonna be like thinking in the context of ways to make, finding mind altering vegetation out there in the wild, or cure alls to different things. You know, the alchemical kind of, you know, aspects of that kind of stuff is a totally different thing than a thief, you know, which is, you know, sneaking and, you know, figuring out ways of distraction and diversions, that sort of thing. Where the fighter, you know, or, you know, the brash barbarian or whatever you have comes in and basically just becomes the meat shield of the party. And there's no real thinking to that, unless you start having one of those characters that can move a lot more and use angles of attack and makes the fight a little bit more dynamic than what you would assume in a Dungeons and Dragons game. But there's just different ways of playing, and it does relate to the different classes or different character archetypes that you would have. Like, for instance, you know, Spencer's going with the rogue, rogue ex-law officer. That's his background. He knows he knows a little bit about guns. He he's had all his training and everything, and he knows a lot about stealth. So those are key things. So always try to apply different things that would advantage those qualities in your character. Always, come up with things. That's the thing is there's if there's not a rule in it in the rule book, the game master seems to dismiss it half the time, or it doesn't really pertain to the situation at hand in combat. If if you're using blade in both hands and kicking a barrel down the stairs, and it's full of gunpowder. So there's game masters that'll go, oh, I don't know how that would work what would I roll to go ahead and make that barrel fall down. It's like, come on, give them a break. All right. But there's people out here, and I do have a video. I have a couple of videos really that I could show. One of them is this. Sarah Rune is the name of this channel. This came out a couple of weeks ago. Why your party isn't role playing. Okay, all right. Have any idea here? Well, we're gonna go ahead and find out. I make her the small picture now because you want to be the bigger picture here. I want to be the bigger picture here. This is my video, but it's a video about her video. It's kind of like a video response, but it's more like video putting in my 2 cents. Does it make sense to you? I don't know. Only you can answer that. All right, let's see what she has to say. Are you going to play now? Are you going to play? Or you're not going to play? Really? You're just not going to play? Let's remove that for one moment, please. Let's see what's going on here. Let's go ahead and do a stop sharing here. What is your major malfunction here? Oh wow, that window's entirely frozen. Let's see if we can do an F5 on it. Nope. Wow, that is seized. Close window. All right. Sorry about the delay, but we'll get that right to it in a second here. I'm sure I will figure a way. You set up everything beforehand and have it all ready, and then by the time you get back to it, it ends up screwing it up somehow with the technology in behind. It's like, oh, you waited so long, so we basically stopped responding here. There we go. YouTube. So you guys all having a great day out there? Like, well, what's she gonna say? Yeah, Kingmaker says, hey, what is she gonna say? Haha. Yeah, exactly. Well, I see you guys did a Ultimate No Prep Challenge recently. So Adam just posted up 44 minutes ago a cool video doing 4D in, off the cuff, improv. That's what I'm into. I can do that. I have fun doing that. And, yeah. All right, just wait for this commercial to go by. I don't want to show you commercials. That'd be terrible. All right. Here we go. Well, let's see if I can go ahead and share it for you. It's not a bad video. It's she brings up some points. But the thing is, does she bring up the right points? Let's see. We will go with, there we go. All right, let's hear it here, ma'am. Don't call me ma'am.
Anything. Why aren't they saying anything? You threw all of your players in a room together. Half of them are actually paying attention. They're actually not killing anything for once, and they're not talking. Why isn't your party role-playing? It's the Dungeon Master's fault. Everything is the Dungeon Master's fault. Schedule problems? Dungeon Master. Murder hobos? Dungeon Master. The fact that your dad abandoned you at a very young age and only really messages you on your birthday to ask for money and or to send you AI slop that they found on Facebook? Dungeon Master. Listen, sometimes your players are just a little shy and need a nudge in the right direction. But there are basically 3 core reasons as to why your table isn't role-playing as much as you'd like them to. Now, all of them are your fault. So let's get into why your party isn't role-playing. Number 1, they need the time. I want you to really think about how you divvy up the time in your sessions. Sure, you've got pages upon pages of planning for tonight's game. Presumably. An encounter here, an NPC there, and surely you'll get through the entire dungeon in one session, right? But that's the thing. Do you leave any space for roleplay in between all of those things? If you realize that your players aren't roleplaying as much, maybe it's because you don't give them the time to. Roleplaying isn't just one character talking to another character. Roleplaying is also the little moments in between. Roleplaying is a character reacting to what's around them. It's a character.
Role-playing should be done all the time. All the time should be role-playing. The only times when you are not role-playing is probably when all the characters in the scene say for their action, I proceed. Next player, I proceed. Third player, I proceed. All right, continue on to the next scene. You go ahead and continue on to where they were continuing on to. Which was the last thing that they were mentioning, probably going to the next scene, and and how they were going to do that. And when they're all done with that, I proceed, and everybody's indicated that they want to go ahead and move on to the next scene. But the problem is you're not giving your players any of those kinds of opportunities anytime during the game, and if you're saying that it's like separate from what are you normally, is combat not role playing, or do you just not have role playing in combat? Because you should have role playing during combat. We do it, and it makes combat a lot more cooler. It's more of something that you can imagine. So, and it also depends on how, whether or not she's talking about a group that she started and she's continuing on with, and she's definitely divided these two things. There's the talk role play, and there's combat, which is not role play according to her. So, that could be the problem here. I'm not saying that's what she's saying, but she's indicating that there are times where there is no role play in the game, or, so if you go into the context that all these things that we are doing in this game are role play, state everything in through the eyes of your character, right? Even during combat, just state those things too. Give a little bit of flavor to how you're attacking and stuff. Give a little bit of your character, what you're bringing into the battle, into the fight. Say your little, little quips, in between, strikes on your opponents and stuff like that. Make it interesting that way. That's cool. We all remember characters for being characters, the what they said, they became the memes of what we see today, or all the little, idiosyncrasies, the irony and stuff. These are things that characters have said to each other, and we remember them and use them as beams later on in life, right? Am I wrong? Yeah, the problem is, if you are a game master and you got a bunch of new players and they all don't know what to do when you stop your description, they're just sitting there and kind of stunned, like not knowing what to say or do. And she does the famous little thing, what do you do? But you don't do that. But if you did have the leniency to say, what do you do? They still don't do anything because they've been so bashed over the head whenever they've tried to do role play in their first, glimmering, infancy times when you were a brand new player and you were coming into this thinking, oh, this is going to be my dream. I'm going to be able to play this character the way I want to play the character. I could do the things that the character can do. And then you come up to a game master that just, throws you into a, basically a stranglehold, figure four leg lock as far as, your ability to role play. And you're going to suddenly realize, okay, if this is your first experience with it, I guess we don't do these things. We just follow what the game master says, and he becomes the storyteller, and we are just the guys that roll the dice. I've seen that lots. I've seen that from people that have said they are the RPG elite, and you know who you are. And they have actually probably more control issues. So I would say it's these are things that you have to come to terms with. Control issues, things we all have to come to terms with. And I'm saying this at a historic kind of thing. I've seen a lot of life, and I've seen a lot of my friends go. And, you got to come to terms with some stuff when you get older. And part of it is knowing who you are. You're like a pile of personalities put together in one, and you're kind of adjudicating, how you're going to, you got all these little voices in your head saying, do it this way, do it that way, blah, 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 In some cases, some people don't have that free of of that kind of, fractaling of a mind. But you got all these little voices in your head that are, tell you, oh, do the bad thing, do the good thing, all that kind of stuff, right? You have to come to terms with all these things, because we as human beings are capable of the most notorious things that you could ever imagine, the most horrifying things that you could imagine any serial killer can do. That is instilled in all of us. It's just a case of whether or not we choose these paths or not. It's some of us have, I don't know if it's past life thing or whatever. Some of us have weeded that out of our systems, and we don't want to go killing people and stuff like that, So, I don't know what the explanation would be. I'm just going on hunch or stuff like that. But role play is a way that you can, in a Jungian kind of thing, kind of lead out some of these, ideas of characters that are like bad guys, or, like you can play a bad guy without feeling bad about playing a bad guy, right? Because it's all into the context of the game. You're in the game, you're playing that bad guy. And it allows you to have that release kind of idea, knowing that you are getting in touch with that darker side a little bit, and and you're negotiating with it, let out, that there was times like I would want to go ahead and scream at the customer in front of me, as a retail assistant manager. But I could not let that be because I had to be calm, cool, and collective and negotiate this gentleman down into purchasing one of our fine, $300 work outfits, and and listen to him complain about the price. You just try to ease the customer, and you don't go for the well then F you kind of thing, and give him the burden, and then he's gone. You lose a customer forever, right? Oh, Flame Zombie says he is working again. Well, don't work too hard. You're going to be free next week. Awesome. So hopefully we'll see you on here. Might get a few more people. We'll have maybe a discussion about something cool other than my solo endeavors here. I'm not sure. Is this cool? Are you learning something here? Okay, let's get back to like actual role play stuff, like game role play kind of stuff. So, I see your point, but yeah, it is a game master's fault for crushing the aspirations of the characters of the players, whims and wishes, crushing them under the might of their control. So, not allowing them to do, and we're not talking about allowing them to just pull out a magic wand of wonder out of their pocket and make it happen. Poof, we're talking about just simple little action things that could easily be remedied with a roll. All you have to do is think in context. Is this using strength? Is this using dexterity? Is this using the endurance or whatever? You have to decide that. You got to be the adjudicator of these rules and make these things happen for the players. Don't stifle any character's brilliance, brilliant moments. Maybe they come up with an idea that they think can work in their head. Possibly in action. You just play it out one action at a time and see if it occurs. Some things, some completing of the, getting there, doing the thing, twisting the knob and hitting the button and everything's done. Well, that takes time. That takes, several actions. So keep in mind when you describe these actions, do them one action at a time. Let your game master breathe. Don't give them like 10 different things that you're doing all at once, as it doesn't happen in whatever, the 6 seconds or the 10 seconds or whatever it is that's allotted for your turn, depending on your rule set. So just putting that out there. But yeah. This gal is just stating the obvious that it is definitely Game Master's fault, but she's not quite on spot on what exactly is causing the problem, because she's still separating the two things. She's separating, I guess, probably combat as being non-role play, and role play as being the talky parts.
You're thinking, hesitating, planning, crying, mostly crying. Let's say that you've planned for the party to meet a really shifty character. Maybe the party needs something from them, maybe the party's been told to go after them, it doesn't really matter. You could set the scene where the party arrives and then the shifty character immediately approaches them and starts talking to them, but that right there is a role-playing moment that you just missed. Instead of having the NPC approach them, make your
And that's what we were showing to the other players last night, was that you can come up with a free-form, easy, little bit of a scenario off the top of your head and play that out. We were done before they were even at room 2. Yeah, before the other 2 tables had even hit room 2. Me and Spencer were done our entire thing. We had made characters. We had gone through a scenario where he starts in a space station, transfers over to a couple of different shuttles along the way to the main home world. boom, land on their home world. He gets his way into the city and finds the museum where he needs to locate this item, finds it, gets the item, brings it back, gets himself shipped off into space again. And Zoom, he meets up with the curator of oddities at the space station and, makes the transaction. He gets the keys to his new flyer. Thus, he has a flyer as a character. Easy way to remedy a player getting something, but making him earn it a little bit, right? And and he's got a little bit more credits. Boom. So now he's fit to be doing something new. He's got a couple more new contacts through this whole thing, and voila, you have a start of a character with some play. And we played that all out once again before the other two tables had even gotten to to room number 2 in their game. It was which way do you want to play? You want to play the way that takes you an hour for one round around the table? Or do you want to play where you can actually get everything done and then some within the hour? Character creation and, the session 0 and a scenario all at once. Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing how that goes. So awesome when it happens that way.
Your players approach the NPC instead. Force your players to make the first step because you never know what might happen. Sure, they might just walk up and say hi, but they also might not. Your players might deliberate beforehand, coming up with an action plan in character, hence role-playing. Your players might sneak up on them. Your players might fucking kill them for all I care. Or your players might just think about it. And that's the important part. You want to give your players time to think in character, to react in character. Don't just say you step into the tavern. Describe to them what the outside of the tavern looks like and then ask them what they want to do. Allow them time to react. I once had a player crawl through a tavern window instead of using the door to enter. It was because she was a druid who spent her entire life in the woods and had no concept of doors. That's role-playing. You can't just throw your characters from one encounter to the next without any breathing room and then complain that they're not role-playing. You haven't given them any time. Normalize asking your players, what will you do? And I know it's awkward, especially as a dungeon master, when you ask that question and then there's a silence that befalls the table, especially when you grow up with parents who are...
There should be never, what do you do? I used to do that all the time. I used to say, what do you do? What do you do? You can do an A, you can do a B, you can do a C, you can do an E if you have an A and a B. It's, game show host it, whatever. It's dreadful that I used to do a lot of that stuff. And, you see a lot of game masters out there, Nikos RPG. He's one of those guys. He says, I have 50 years of being a dungeon master. 50 years. And I watched his game and it's not impressive at all. It's humdrum, run of the mill, listen to the game master talk while the players, attempt to try to do something and then, get their actions rewritten by the game master. So, a bit of a dichotomy between, what the players are imagining, what the game master is imagining. And you beat that at your players over and over and over again until they just give in and say, okay, we are just the die rollers now. Let us know when we got to go ahead and roll the die. That's essentially what you're doing to your players, is turning them into 1D faster than you can say bananas. And this is pretty bananas. So, there's some examples of this as well. Let's we get the gist of what she's saying here. I've listened to the whole thing and it really doesn't get any better. But, But kudos that she's mentioning that hey, there's supposed to be something called role playing in a role playing game. You know, it kind of makes sense. So, anyways, there are a few others that definitely have. Let's see. Stop this screen, and I'll go to this next one here, which is on my watch later list. This one here. I'm just running through the commercial here, so you don't have to see it. You know, one thing I hate is, you know, when they get you with the double commercial thing, right? It's annoying. So let me get to the beginning of this thing right here. Let's go there. All right. Share screen. Share the volume. Sharing volumes. There we go. Oh, oh, yay. There we go. Wonderful. StreamYard. Okay, so some of you guys might have seen this Loot Goblin Marketplace. It's one of those guys that does you know, the Reddit posts and stuff like this. Well, in this case, there's a person on his Discord, so that mentions this situation, and this is coming from the player's point of view now. It's the same kind of situation, okay? And listen to this. It's like it just makes you makes your ears bleed if you're a 4D player, okay?
Called Journey of That Guy, and the TLDR is, I had a dungeon master using nonsensical rules for his homebrewed campaign to bully me, and after killing 2 of my characters by intentionally setting me, a new player, against monsters that were far stronger than my weak level 1s, he tells me I have no idea how to play and causes me enough anxiety to not pick up gaming. And this is after telling me he's setting encounters of a CR meant for the only 3rd level character in the party to take on, as if his character is the power balance of the party. However, he isn't that guy mentioned in the title. I am. This is my story and I hope you enjoy. And that TLDR right there really hooked me in and is why I wanted to share this story with you today, to find out what the journey of that guy really was. Characters of this story with names only change because...
Let's go ahead and speed this up a little bit. Oop, not a sleep timer. We want a playback speed. There we go. That'll be a little bit better.
I don't actually remember most names beyond an old school friends, so he will get a name change to keep it in line with the others. Me, played a paladin, then barbarian, and then almost a bard, to be explained later. The DM is the dungeon master. Rogue is that old high school friend. Played an arcane trickster rogue, the only one in the party at level 3. Fighter, another person I've known, but this guy came back from my old church. Seriously, this game was just a blast from the past for me. Monk, a rando who was in the game with us, really cool guy, small victim of mistaken identity because, well, I'm an idiot. This story takes place a few years ago, shortly after I'd gotten a job and had discovered that there was a game store in walking distance from my house. So I decided to go in and check and asked if they did D&D nights still after I saw a sign promoting it. Dumb question, but I wasn't sure if they had any groups, so I decided to ease into it. They actually had a couple of game groups gathered, so I went in and found a group of guys to join in. What they didn't tell me was that I would have to pay $3 to join in. I apologized and said I would come back later when I actually had money. This being my first job, I hadn't had a paycheck yet. But then this glorious tall man with an even more glorious beard decides to spot me for the next couple of weeks. So I rolled up a paladin, who would inspire a long line of characters and whose very creation actually helped me with my own future writing. Silent, the Vengeance Paladin of Tritherion. Now, this character stars a paladin Bahamut because I was not actually all too familiar with the gods of D&D, and so choosing a god wasn't exactly something I was used to. Actually, as you'll soon see, I wasn't familiar with a lot of things, particularly how to balance encounters. No fault of my own, as I'm not the DM here. I talked to the DM about this when he asked if I really wanted Bahamut, because I didn't seem too into the choice. In comes an old friend from high school who just happened to be in this game as well. I was surprised to see this, but he decided to help me. He cracked open one of his source books and we looked at the myriad of gods I could choose from from until I came across a strange name, the eponymous Tritherion. He tells me that Tritherion is a minor god, but a god of freedom and personal liberty. His motto is chains are meant to be broken, as are those who forge them. To understand this next bit, understand that I fancy myself a writer. I even have a novel in the making. I experiment constantly to try and see what works with my own writing style, ethos, and prose. And for some reason, this simple idea just clicked into place like the long-lost piece of a puzzle. Well, I asked my DM if my character could go on a spiritual journey to discover Tritherion, rather than just retconning, because we already had a session with him joining the party. So it was that my character had no class features, but I was only level 1, so I wasn't too bothered by that. Then discovered that other players were level 2, with one guy being level 3, the rogue mentioned above. I asked the DM why the rest of us were behind in levels, and apparently there's a rule in the book where if you join in a new game, you start 2 levels behind everyone else. Now, I could be mistaken, but with the offhanded way this DM introduced this rule, I really did feel like he was just saying that. I didn't notice the odd looks the other players were giving the DM at that declaration, looks that I would come to understand as something that they really didn't like, but put up with as he was the DM and they wanted to play some D&D, but I sure as hell never heard of it. Luckily, I now know that isn't a rule, or at least not official. Well, in this session, I discovered another nifty little feature about the 2 levels behind rule, and it goes a little something like this. For every new character you bring in, you have to start 2 levels lower than the character who last died, to a base of level 1. I think you can guess where this is going. Well, to make a long story short, as our characters are traveling across the swamp to deliver lightning in a bottle, not the simile, but literal lightning in a jar, and I cannot for the life of me tell you what that was about, we ended up fighting a giant snake, a giant boa specifically, I believe. Mind you, I was still level 1 and could only make an attack. All the other players ran to get into better position, and I was left alone to tank the damn thing. Not sure what to do, I tried my best to hold it off. Yeah, I was an idiot, cut me just a bit of slack, because I had no idea this thing was a CR or 2 above me. Hell, I didn't even know anything about CR at the time. For the very few times I had even looked at 5e beforehand, it was to more or less just goof off. It grapples me and begins crushing me, and for the life of me I cannot escape the damn thing. Nobody's helping me, and within 2 rounds I get killed. The DM describes the snake slowly chewing me. I was a bit pissy that my character that I had finally finished making was so unceremoniously killed, and did make a snide remark about snakes not chewing their food. Immature of me, but I did drop it. And so did the DM, who gave me a nasty look and just said that I got eaten. I asked the DM how powerful that thing was, and if it was something I could fight. He just sort of blithely mentioned that it wasn't. I suspect that he said this for another reason that I'll get into later, but I digress. I asked then, why were we put against this if it wasn't something we could handle? He corrected me and said that he designed the encounter for a 3rd level encounter. I tried to tell him I'm not level 3, but apparently there's another rule in 5th edition that says you have to plan an encounter around whoever is the highest level in your party. I tried to say that didn't make any sense, because if that were the case, then none of us will be able to level at this rate, only to realize I was an idiot for saying that because we had a level 3, 2 level 2s, and then me. I apologized and said I was a bit hurt that my character was killed like that, and I spoke out of line. The DM accepted my apology, and we moved on. He said I could create my character, and we could introduce him when the party arrived at the settlement in the swamp next session. So I rolled up Brago, a quick concept that was more or less half-baked, just a dumb barbarian who fancied himself a romantic and who carried around a book a bard gifted him to help him learn how to woo the ladies. Cool. He hailed from a tribe where his wife had been awful to him, and when he discovered that his children were not his, he left behind his tribe and callous family to seek companionship with friends and perhaps
This is a player that you would want in your game that thinks up these cool little ideas, as part of his character, and to have him, hopefully with a game master that will be able to role play these things out for him. Okay, but instead you're going to get the typical, the typical dungeon master you see out there that goes ahead and figures out the CRs of everything and plays you through his story, the game master's story, not your story, the game master's story, and you just have to grit your way through it. No role play.
Find love in the civilized world. Brago was also a bit of a showboat who liked to try and tell stories of his great deeds because he had a bit of an inferiority complex. So when I'm asked to introduce myself, I showed a picture of my character. At this point, I was so proud of the art I commissioned that I loved to show it off, and still am, to be honest. But it was more like I was a bit shy about describing what my character looked like by word of mouth. And here Taylor has provided us 2 pieces of artwork that really show off the aesthetic of Brago. And I'll say one thing for sure, already loving the concept. Me. You see this 7'6" barbarian lad trying to prove himself to this random shopkeeper who, as the DM said, just doesn't seem to actually care. DM, I want to make a check as I flex my muscles, as I say, can you seriously look at this man meat and tell me that I lie? DM, sure, roll me an intimidation check. Me, I'm not trying to frighten him, I'm just trying to show off. DM, you're using your muscles to try and force his perspective. In my book, that is intimidation. Me, oh, well, yeah, I see your point. I can make a note of that because Brago is not actually that kind of person, but I'll roll it as I mess that up. Roll something like a 17. Solid roll for having nothing in charisma and no training in charisma skills. DM, you all walk in and see the barbarian flexing before he suddenly starts screeching in the face of this terrified shopkeeper. Me, no, I'm not. I'm talking at a normal volume, dude. Sure, I may be a bit boisterous, but I'm not screeching like a monkey at all. Fun fact, this is actually the start of me turning Brago into a Tarzan ripoff for future games. Compete with beating on my chest like bongos, heavily inspired by Tarzan, and even the likes of Kong. DM, yes, you do. When you try and intimidate people, you do it so by screaming at them. I wish I were exaggerating, but he actually said this. Me, I don't know what rule says that in the book, but you've seen fantasy.
All right. So here's the issue: is that that dungeon master is totally taken over your character. He's not letting you play it the way you want to play your character. The problem is the game master in here that's just brutal. That poor guy. And now he's ruined. He's ruined now. It's the first time he's played this Dungeons and Dragons thing, thinking that he's going to have the time of his life playing these cool characters. And you wreck it. And you wreck it for him. Do you feel good? Do you feel good for doing that, Mr. Dungeon Master? Like, seriously. Like, I see this happen, and I bet you Dungeon Masters don't even know you're doing it. So you should definitely always record your sessions, even if it's just a voice recording on your phone, okay? But just stick that thing in the middle of the group and do your game. Listen to it. Now check to see, are you listening to your players? Are you missing things, are you missing out on stuff? Those are things that maybe you should, hone in on, developing better listening skills, talking to your players and listening to them. Remember, you shut your mouth for most of the session because you need to listen to them. Okay? And I could be a very vocal game master too. You've seen my 2D games. I can be very vocal. But that doesn't help the player any at all, unless it's just the way that you're describing things. Maybe you have a lot of descriptions to go through. Sure, okay, that would make you want to talk more. But what gives you the right to play the player's character? You don't want, as a game master, you don't want the players taking over your NPCs and making them move and do things and say things that they wouldn't normally do. Would you? So why are you doing it to your player? Okay? So it works both ways. You can't have it just one. Everybody thinks they can have it one way. It's retarded. So yeah, this is the problem. This is the entire problem. Is the initial contact of a player that is runs into this game master and has no idea how to conduct in the game because he's brand new, and you don't give him any heads up. You just totally just destroy his characters one after another, and then he just gives up on trying to make any semblance of a backstory or anything. He just gives up on even trying to reach anything on the descriptions of his character because the game master's going to override it anyways and make him look like a freak. That's just bullshit. And there are I've seen a lot of games, and these are coming from people that are adamant in the hobby that 4D is this elitist class of gamers, blah blah blah. Well, who else is going to advocate for the player's rights to role play his character or her character when the likes of you are always taking that away from them and just doing with it what you will? I know you want your story to be told, Mr. Game Master, not the player's story. The players what are the players there for? They're just set pieces, I guess, for your little charade that's going on, whatever it is that you're doing, whatever GM PC that you're providing for the for the party, if that's the case, or whatever control fantasies you're having at the time, Mr. Game Master. So this led me to thinking about what I'm going to do for my next session, because I have decided, instead of going to Strange Ideas anymore, my local game store, I'm gonna go start doing games on Wednesday night at Wonderlands. They've given me a little bit of a proposition to show up there and do some games, and they have a lot of new people walking in. So people that have never played role-playing games before. So I think this would be a good opportunity for me to figure out some way to go ahead and introduce players into the hobby. By giving I started writing down all the stuff that we talk about on our lexicon and stuff like that. And I was thinking, maybe I should put together like a kind of a pamphlet, a leaflet that the player can go through to understand the fundamental things that I'm asking for as the game master and what I expect of them as players. So I'm going to work on that. So I've just been correlating some notes and getting them together. I'll probably put together a printable PDF once I'm done and post it in our Discord in the library section for people to download. And once I have it, I have to put it together so it's fairly easy for a new person to come in that either has very little role play experience or knows role playing experience, knows what goes on in a game, I should say, as may not necessarily be role playing, and put it together so that both of those kinds of aspects understand what I'm trying to ask them to do here. So yeah, that'll be my goal this week. Besides trying to finish up the last, get my flower beds in so that the wife can start planting stuff before it gets too late in the season. It's still early though for us up here. Keep in mind, Grand Prairie's pretty close to the up near the Arctic Circle, so it's a different place up here. We have a different growing season altogether. Mind you, our days here right now are super long. Like we don't see the sun come down right now until about 11. About 11 o'clock now is there's still light leaking up. So about 10 is when the sun actually starts making its way down, but it still lingers along the as it circumvents navigates its way across the azimuth of the sky or whatever, and it's really light out for a elongated time during the summers here. So this is where we start getting into the midnight sun type part of the year, which comes up in another month and a half, somewhere in there, month and a half. It starts getting to be ridiculously long. So that's my plan, is go ahead and do a little kind of interesting little how to role play pamphlet, and the ins and outs, what the player's responsibilities are, what the game master's responsibilities are, and the don't do's on that list will be, and we'll have explanations on what to do in order to correct that. So it'll make it rather easy to digest. And I won't be asking them for my games coming up here to do any co-creation right away, but I will imply that they can likely do some lightweight co-creation, as in enhancing the features of what they see in their vicinity, but not outright creating objects out of thin air and stuff like that. So they'll still play to the context of my descriptions, and will tend not to embellish them too much. Sorry about the coughing. I got a little bit of a thing in the throat, working in the sand and stuff. So, it's a little bit up there in my chest. Anyways. Well, I can see that there's nobody's actually asking any questions. So, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of game masters out there that have control issues. That are makes you wonder what is it that makes us want to control so much all the time as game masters. And for me, it was a big battle. It was huge. I really had to tackle that. Like I was feeling bad that I was enforcing rules. You just feel like you're being mean or something. I don't know. It's something that I had to kind of get over. I'm pretty good at laying down the law as far as being a manager to a worker and getting my point across pretty quick and bluntly. And I have no refrain to correct somebody in what they do. And of course I tell them, of course this is, in order to make sure we're working in a safe environment and blah, 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 the usual, thing that you tell them. But this is different. I guess maybe because you kind of look at the players more as your friends or something. I don't know. But anyways, this will be playing with strangers initially, but I will be doing with each of the players that do show up. I'll definitely vet them, and I'll run them through a vetting process, which is very much similar to what I do with the current training that you see that I do with other people online. And all it is just, gauging how well their response is, to see if they stay in the context of I do this or I attempt to do that, and talk in character, stay in character, think in character. That's another aspect that you gotta. What was it? I think Phil the Thrill mentioned it was bleed on his discussion with Max just recently, and which was one of the topics where you think that bleed of the character coming into you in real life, or the bleed of your persona invading the character. I mean, you're always going to have the thing about the ego, as overriding the entire persona, right? So, but your ego isn't your real persona, and then we're now we're coming up with animus and anima, and sometimes ways some esoteric things describe what's happening. Is, how can I say this? So you have a bunch of desires to act upon, but don't. And then you have a bunch of desires that you do act upon. And you are the decider on this kind of thing. So you always have a decider in your head. whether or not that is the true you or not, I'm not, not quite sure. But when you pull from these the tropey kind of character types, the different actors and stuff, and so appreciate that Elf Hunter. I see he says he wished he could join. Just got some cleaning and other stuff to take care of. That's no problem. Thanks for watching. But but there is a thing that I find interesting in the role play is that you can act as these different kinds of characters, and you're not worried about being harmed in it, physically, in the action, swords, flying and cutting people into pieces. It could be a rather painful experience, and you're in as safe as a you're not actually doing these, but you're allowing the expression of it to occur. So I don't know. I guess it does kind of feed into the I'm just spinning wheels here on an idea. There are some kind of interesting, philosophical things that you can draw from what you learn from role play, learn about yourself, and learn from others too. We are all learning, different things as we're realizing stuff as we're doing it, and coming up with, new, possible ways to play out a certain part of the game that you feel kind of gets hindered, in being role playable, and you try and work it so it becomes role playable, and you figure out different ways. So we're always doing, experimental things to see if we can, add more game systems to what we do. Pretty much all of them will work. There are quite a few of them that really rely on board gamey kind of, stuff that you have to adhere to. So, that's where we kind of like try to figure out ways to, work the role play in and make that role play strong in that area, and those kinds of games where there might be a lot more board gamey aspects that you want to kind of pull away from in order to make it more 4D. Well, at least you can try to just make it 3D, in some of those cases. I don't know. Anyways, Poop Drick. I think I've yammered on enough, but all in all, roleplay. So I think it is, the reason why we have this, horrible thing about why we don't have enough roleplay in a role-playing game is because, for some reason, people think that combat is not role-playing. So you have that going on. And then another reason is because the game master will go ahead and role-play your character for you in a way that you don't want him to anyways. So what's the point in, the poor players these days are being beaten both ways here. And no wonder they don't want to role-play or can't role-play or don't know how to role-play, because that's been pulled out of them. You killed it from them. You just basically dashed all their hopes and dreams for what role playing could actually become. And I hope you're proud. I hope you're proud of that. There, you guys that do this. I hope you're proud, dashing people's dreams. I say it sarcastically, of course. But I don't know. That's my 2 cents on that thing. And yeah, I kind of gave you some examples here of two kind of situations, but related to all role play, because in the end, that's what it all is role play. And sorry guys that bought the game thinking that it should be just a skirmish thing. I mean, sure, play it that way if you want. But originally, role-playing game was about role-playing and not boards. That's all I have to say. You guys have a good day. See what's going on later on this afternoon. I might come on. I'm not sure, but we'll see who's got streams going. We'll see you guys later. Have a awesome day, as I will.